freezing. You know,
Hello, everyone. We're a few moments late coming onto Blabbit today due to some technical difficulty of 2022. Bear with us for a moment, please.
Yes, it's a new year, and sometimes reboots are not as smooth as you would expect them to be. So we are just going to kind of move along here in 2022, as they say. For those of you who are tuning in, this is our episode that's all about healthy starts, getting things started in the right way. And it's a perfect timing. Start of a new year, new you. What do you say, Glenn? How was your holiday? Did you have a chance to relax, a moment to relax at all?
You know, we did. It was a great time. Had some great times with family and got a lot of work done. So it was just a good time. Just a lot of, I guess, maybe fewer outside distractions.
Yes. Whether we chose it to be that way or not, there was definitely limited distractions. All right. So we are, for those of you tuning in for the first time, or for the 71st time to Blabbit, we are the co-hosts of Blabbit. My name is Paul Geiger. I am a public speaking coach and presentation expert out of New York City. And I work with organizations and individuals about making sure that their messages are clear, that they don't have any speaking habits that are sabotaging whether people are trusting the things they're saying and being persuaded by the things they're saying. And that goes a long way in business.
There you are.
We've got our technical difficulties, I believe, ironed out. I'm going to toss it over to Glenn now, and then Glenn will introduce or will throw it over to our esteemed guest.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Glenn Ingram. I've been working for the better part of the last 2 decades on improving my skills to communicate with people, to listen, to help people with persuasion, and help them have a better sales aptitude. Lisa, can you hear us now?
I can hear you on my phone. I'm so sorry. This is crazy.
Hey, you know what? We'll get through it. It's 2022. We had to stumble, but we'll make it through. Can you share a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm a nutritional consultant, and I specialize with hair analysis, which is a little bit of a unicorn. Nobody really knows what it is unless they're watching CSI and they're looking for drugs in their hair.
Interesting. Yes. If you're involved in forensics, then I guess you'd be thinking about that. I find I've been watching your posts for most of 2021, Lisa, and you bring up some really, really interesting things. But I'm going to let Glenn start things off with the first question. What do you say, sir?
Well, you know, I think it's one of those things that we don't know what we don't know. But when you can go in and have your hair analysis done, there's also people that'll do blood analysis, with live blood cells and dry blood cells. It's just very interesting, I think, when you hear those results and the things that they can determine from those, and they really help you kind of determine how you're living and how you should be living. So can you share a little bit more with us about kind of a hair analysis and some things that it's going to share with people and kind of help them determine what they should be doing with their lives?
Sure. So hair analysis is basically a soft tissue biopsy. And what I'm looking at is the mineral levels. We're all made up of minerals and heavy metals. So you may need to detoxify some of the heavy metals. We're exposed to them in our food, in the air, and everywhere we go. The glucose amount in your cells versus your blood glucose, different things. So you can have low blood sugar, but then eat and it picks back up. But how much sugar is stored in your cells? So I can see trend coming if someone is pre-diabetic. I look at the thyroid health a little deeper than a TSH blood work rundown. I'm looking at the function from your brain all the way through to the energy, which is T3. The adrenal function. So if you're burning out or if it's rested and it's doing well, it's not in fight and flight all the time. The cellular membrane is where I do the magical stuff. So I'm looking to see if you have inflammation there and if you have adequate thickness to your cells, because that's your armor and your protection. So I want to make sure someone doesn't have a ghostly cell or they don't have too thick of a cell, so oxygen and nutrition can't get in there. And then I'm looking for your metabolism to gear your supplements and your diet around your metabolism and to make sure you don't have muscle loss.
Mhm.
So there's a lot on hair tests that you wouldn't imagine could come up.
I'm always intrigued. In fact, I want to make sure that everybody's getting all of this. So, Glenn, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty with a little feedback going on right now with I believe Lisa's mic, and I don't know if the same is true of what's going on in my system. It sounds like there are two sources picking up sound right now, Lisa. Maybe the Yeti and the phone. Is that
Well,
possible?
I just muted my phone, so Lisa, speak for a moment again, and let's see if we avoided that.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I'm getting an echo on.
can.
Yeah, I'm getting
can
an
hear
echo on both of you guys, and you're probably getting one on me as well. No?
How's that? I hung up the phone.
Oh, that's great. I don't know why it's working now. Can you hear us?
Yes, totally. We have technical ghosts today.
All right,
Woo!
let's keep rocking.
There we go. All right. For anybody who, and I apologize for these technical difficulties.
too.
You know, we've been doing this for quite some time, but I guess you get your challenges from time to time. Could you please just give us a rundown on what you just said, because so much of it was so important. And again, apologies for having you repeat.
No, I'm so sorry about the technicals. I'm looking at mineral levels because we're all made up of minerals. And if they're too low, we have to rebuild those. I'm looking at heavy metal toxicity because we're exposed to it throughout our food and the air and everything we encounter, even cleaning products. I'm looking at cellular glucose to make sure that nobody is trending towards a pre-diabetic state, because it's different than your blood sugar. It's what's stored up in case you need a backup. I'm looking at thyroid health from the brain all the way through to making T3, which is the hormone that gives us energy. Adrenal health. So if someone is in a burnout situation or a fight or flight all the time, I can tell on a cellular level if they're just on fire and they need to rest more mentally and physically. Cellular membrane, which is that outer membrane. We actually have two of them on the outside of our cells. And I don't want anyone to be too ghostly. And I do want to touch on that with COVID and zinc. And I don't want it to be too thick, or else we can't get our nutrition and our oxygen in there. And it's an inflammatory marker at the cellular level. So you can see when something's coming down the road. I want to make sure nobody has muscle loss, especially after we start hitting 40, 50, me included. And I want to gear their diet and their supplements toward their metabolism. So they're on the right supplements to either increase their metabolism or slow it down because they're too hot and on fire and they're burning through their food and not absorbing it.
Okay. Glenn, is the sound any better on your end?
You know what it is, what it is. We just have to deal with it.
Okay. All right.
So I think these things are probably important because outside of a few movies in Hollywood, I've never seen any way for us to transmit our consciousness to another vessel. So if we don't take care of our bodies, it's probably not going to be with us as long.
Right. And our cells are our memory, and our cells are our energy, and our brain is the hardware, the computer. So all the traumas, all the sickness, it's in the cell. So you have to have good cellular health to have everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say is something that most people overlook when it comes to their nutrition? Would you say that there are some red flags that that most people miss? What would you say the top three are?
The inflammatory foods such as grains, dairy, and probably soy, which surprises some people. And that gets tough on a vegetarian side because we do eat a lot of soy. But the grains cause a lot of gut inflammation because they're soaked in glyphosate, which is Roundup, sometimes 3 times before they're harvested. It causes leaky gut, which leads to Crohn's, celiac, IBS, all those situations. The dairy, that does the same thing. And what most people don't understand is dairy is like crack to parasites, okay? So when they eat dairy, they get bloated. It's not necessarily a reaction to the dairy, but the parasites are coming out to have a party. So there's many reasons for dairy. And then the soy is 99.9% soaked with glyphosate, which causes a lot of issues. And that's one of my big deals I watch because of autism and things like that related to when we started using Roundup. cancer, all those things. So those top three, sugar, of course, that's a given. Those three are kind of overlooked.
Do you have any experience with goat's milk versus cow's milk and the difference in that for the nutritional values and the effects on your body?
Yep. Goat's milk is much better. You can't separate the fat out of goat milk. It's still bound to the milk. And that's why it's like a first choice if you can't breastfeed as a mom versus the soy formula. And my mentor had done a study one time on that soy formula, and 1 day's worth of baby bottles is equivalent to 5 birth control pills in estrogen. And that's why they tell women in menopause to eat soy products to raise their estrogen level to stop hot flashes. But there's a lot of cancers that are linked to estrogen fed things. So you don't want to go there.
Okay. Now, obviously, we've been talking about this episode of Blabbit being a good start for the new year. And there are definitely new choices that we all make as we make resolutions in any new year. But are there some hidden dangers that maybe we don't have as much control over? I realize whatever we put into our bodies, we have control over. But I was really interested. You posted a couple of weeks ago about the hidden dangers in water. And what are some of those for our listening audience?
There's a lot of chemicals that are recycled and brought back into our water sources. So when people take medications and it's urinated and it goes into the system, it's not always removed. You need a really good clean filter that will take out medications. Personally, I like my Berkey. It's Berkey. It takes out everything from radiation to heavy metals, which is a thing for me because my well has high manganese. It takes out the medications, the glyphosate that's in my farmland around me. So if it gets down into the ground in that aqueduct and it's running through my neighborhood, I'm still getting from the farm 5-10 miles from here. So we want to make sure we filter that out. Second best would be a solid block carbon filter, and you can get those for your showers. So if you live in the city and you don't want to breathe in that chlorine and the fluoride getting on you or drinking it, you can use a solid block carbon on your shower and where you get your water from.
Well, and as someone that drinks a lot of water, because I know it's good for me, it's also something that we need to be more, I guess, intelligent about. I remember in a psych class when I was young, learning that the Missouri River had more lithium than any other drinking water in the country. And anyone that knows about your anatomy knows if you start producing something that your body normally produces, it may stop producing it. And you don't know if it will start producing it at the proper levels when it doesn't have that outside influence.
Right. Same thing happens with thyroid medication. So the folks I work with that want to get off that thyroid medication, if your thyroid's getting it for free, it's not going to put the energy to make it. So the goal is to support and feed your thyroid so it can heal itself. And then you can drop down on that medication milligram until one time you don't need it. I've had that happen many times. Yep. Lithium can come from seafood as well. And you can get a high lithium. It's kind of like the happy thing that's in anti-depression drugs. And fluoride. That's, again, linked to the water. Prozac, I believe last time I checked, is 18% fluoride. Fluoride numbs your mind. It makes you complacent. You don't feel depressed. You don't feel anything. And it's not a healthy product. Fluorine is natural in our soil. Fluoride is the byproduct of making aluminum. And it's illegal for the EPA to dump it in the water or in the ground. And the study that I base fluoride off of, and I go round and round at my dentist when my kids had the study trays, that study's based off of 10 people in 1962. It's crazy.
I think that's why they stopped doing those fluoride treatments that some of us got in elementary school.
They still do them.
No way.
They do them. Yep, I go round and round at the dentist when my kids were little, up to 5 years ago. They would want to shove those trays in there. And finally, I looked at the hygienist. I said, you ever seen those poor children over in Africa that are starving to death and they're bloated? I said, what do their teeth look like? She's like, well, they're beautiful. I'm like, yeah, they don't have fluoride trace. They just don't eat sugar. And they're malnourished, Yeah.
We hear that. Yeah, we hear that all the time about, sugar, of course. And after the holiday season, we've got to reverse some of the effects of that. Now,
The
I
average
know,
American eats 150 pounds a year.
wow. All right. Now, to go back to what Glenn said earlier in the broadcast, which is talking about hair analysis, and you described a little bit of that. We're all familiar because we do our annual checkups. We're all familiar with blood tests,
Mhm.
but what is the difference? What are you looking for, or what is the difference between a blood test and a hair analysis test?
Mhm. So a blood test is like a snapshot picture of you right now. In a week, you could break out all over your face. Things change. So they change constantly. You could eat a Snickers bar, and then you could test your blood in 5 minutes and look diabetic. The hair
Mhm.
test is like a short film of what's happened in your life over the last month on a cellular level. So it's a deep look into what's really going on underneath at the bottom of the ocean before it hits the
Yeah.
top. So
Oh.
your blood work is kind of like your checking account, where if you run low on something, it'll borrow from your ready reserve and make sure your levels all look pretty. But when your savings is tapped out, you're in trouble because there's no loan. So you have to make sure that your savings account is healthy enough to keep feeding your blood supply and keep you healthy. The problem that I encountered when I started on this whole journey with hair analysis, went through all the heart doctors, all the stress tests, they forced air through my heart. I couldn't regulate my heart because my sodium and potassium were so low at the cell level. I had nothing left to give. And I was 36 years old. So I was right on the brink of a heart attack or a stroke just because my minerals were so low. But my blood looked okay because it was using up the last of what I had in storage.
Ah,
Mhm.
interesting.
So with doing after this analysis, can we talk a little bit about what, like kind of like what Paul was talking about, some of your primary deficiencies from the mineral level? Because when we have a cold and flu season, when you have anything going on around us, a lot of people know that their immune systems are increased by having the proper nutrition that we don't get from our food like we used to. So what should people be doing to be healthier from a mineral standpoint, a nutrition standpoint, to try and fight off bugs that are out there in the world?
At the very least, you want to increase your vegetable intake because that's where all our nutrients are at. There's not all the B vitamins and the good things that we need in meat and fat. So you want to increase your vegetables in a large variety from the root, the leafy greens. You just want to mix them all up and get lots of sources all day long. You can freeze them. I can go in the deep end of the pool with that. But you want to increase your vegetables, make sure you're hydrated, as you mentioned too. And a quality supplement, the problem is you don't know which supplement is best for your body unless you know your biochemistry. So you could be taking something that's pushing your adrenals harder because it has a lot of B vitamins in it, which we all know is good. But if you're already on fire and you add B vitamins, it just pushes your adrenals harder. It's like throwing gas on the fire.
Hmm.
So you want to know your chemistry to know what's good for you. I previously mentioned zinc. That has been my biggest project over the last few years because everybody's hopped on zinc saying, oh, I'm going to make sure I don't get COVID. It's great. It is great, but it's a medicine. Just like food is our medicine, minerals are medicines. So if your cell is depleted, your two fatty layers are too thin, and you take zinc, you thin those out further. So you get to a point where your cells are ghosts with no protection. So if you catch a cold, you are knocked down like never before because you depleted that armor around your cell.
Hmm.
So self-medicating with zinc is not a good idea. It's good in trace minerals or in our foods, but when you take 50 to 100 milligrams a day, you could be actually depleting your cell structures.
Wow. Okay. So some of the perceived best practices really aren't in reality. So I'm going to guess that hair analysis is a way to figure out a little bit of the roadmap of your biochemistry,
It
or
does.
all of it.
It does. It shows you where you're at and what you need to rebuild. And it can get a little more complicated than that, a little step further, because if your iron's low, you'll have the same symptoms as if you have anemia, because the iron is in your body and it's oxidized, just like it does in the outside world where rust, and it's no longer a bioavailable form. So you can't make red blood cells with that anymore. It's a junk form of it. So you need to remove that in a way. Let's say your basement, a really bad cinder, you have to dig that out. And then you need to put back the fresh one to rebuild for structure and strength. You need a good form of iron. And what is bringing your iron down? Is it because you're not eating enough, or is another mineral or heavy metal driving it down? Because these things push and pull each other. I can post or send or share with you, it's a circular picture of what pushes and pulls what. It's amazing how, if you mess with calcium, how many things are messed up with that. It's either going to push or pull another mineral or heavy metal.
Action and reaction.
Completely. Wow. And it's on all different levels. So if you look at a baby mobile with the little toys hanging above the crib, if you back one of those, the whole thing wobbles and it's all off. You have to address all of it at the same time to bring back balance, because if you just go one thing, you can mess up other things. I do have a little example if you want to see what a hair chart looks like. This is what comes back. So it shows your minerals, your electrolytes, and the heavy metals. And there's clues on there for me. So then I can see where you might be contaminated. Foods, I ask people, tell me what you eat. I don't care if it's embarrassing, if you live on shows and screens. I'm looking for clues in there where they're getting contamination, such as rice. Rice is high in arsenic. So about 8 years ago, I started picking up on my Asian clients, my Indian clients. They eat a lot of rice and they were high in arsenic. And when we put that back down to 2 to 3 times a week, it dropped. Now the mainstream knows that. Now they talk about it. Now they share that, yeah, rice is high in arsenic. So it can give you the heads up long before you hit a problem.
Wow. So, okay, let me take another specific example, because I'm sure to one degree or another over this past holiday season, we all definitely indulged in a little bit of alcohol consumption to one level or another. Yeah, I know, a foreign matter to you, sir. So tell us about, and as much as we don't want to hear it, tell us about what the bad effects are. Is the sugar worse than the alcohol? What's going on right there? Nobody knows that it's good for you. I mean, it's good for a good time, but what's going on several different levels? And I'm sure you know what it is. Lisa, could you inform us, please?
With sugar, obviously we release insulin to take it down and lower the level in our blood. And
okay.
I'm
going to say there's no relevant evidence that there's anything bad about it at all, Paul.
Oh, so alcohol is like it's a health food for 2022 because the powers that be didn't want to hear what Lisa had to say.
Exactly.
All right.
You know, it's kind of interesting. Well, she's gone, since she's talked about that. Some doctors that were treating some things with this little virus that's been going around for a couple of years, we're really talking about something, and it's kind of Bill Huff, who's been on our show, and I were talking about this information the doctor shared with me. And it's interesting that with this, and I think with the alcohol both, most of us do not cleanse our kidneys and do not cleanse our livers. We hear about other types of cleanses, but I think it's interesting, and I don't know enough about it to be intelligent, other than that I've learned a little bit about it, to know that we have benefits of cleansing different parts of our system. I think it's something that we probably all need to look into a little bit more. Let's see if we have Lisa back yet.
Okay. You know, it's kind of interesting. And the whole idea of getting healthy, you know, I like to believe that I lead a fairly healthy lifestyle, but it just like with everyone, it can get fairly overwhelming when you have to worry, when you have to think about, well, wait, did I get enough cruciferous vegetables? Did I get enough of these vitamins? Did I get enough of this, of that? The maintenance to make sure that you're not doing something wrong for 10, 20, 30 years that will ultimately have some adverse effect down the line. It's a big responsibility. You know, it's nice. I'm the kind of person who likes to put things in place and then just rinse and repeat, and not have to worry about too much.
Well, and I think it's being the optimal student and trying to learn more about it because, as I kind of said, tongue in cheek, we do only have one body, one life. So if you're not trying to learn as you go, different things are better. Lisa mentioned vegetables all day long. I can only eat so many vegetables with so many meals from a pellet standpoint, but I found outside supplements that I can put in water to help me with that one meal a day because we really should have vegetables every time we eat.
Yeah.
So, I may have an omelet with vegetables for breakfast, but at lunch I'm not having vegetables, but I can do that little supplement that takes care of that one meal, and then I can have vegetables with my dinner. So it does take a little bit of effort and a little bit of planning to do something right. Lisa's still having some difficulty logging in, everyone, just in case you were wondering.
Okay. Well, we'll hang on just a little bit longer. It's kind of interesting, and there's definitely science. There's definitely some preference that goes into it. I don't know if my experience is correct or my perception is correct, but I always felt if I was taking, I could always tell if I was taking an unnecessary supplement. And I know that various times people would suggest, oh, you should try this, you should try that. And being the open-minded person that I am, I might give it a try because their logic made sense or the science behind it made sense. But I could always tell if I took something and my body was just saying, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. So,
well, and I think we do need to listen to our bodies more. The vitamins that I take, there's a liquid version, there's a pill version of it by the same company. And if I do not have food in my system, it's going to tell my stomach, I don't like you very much because they're going to fight pretty hard. But just by taking a little bit of food so that there's something else in there makes everything so much more copacetic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm hoping that we can get Lisa back because the microbiome is such an important, there's so much balance. She touched just a little bit about the bacteria in your body having an all-out block party every time you put dairy down there. Is the thing she referred to dairy as being crack, which okay. So they're always craving it and whatnot. But keeping your gut healthy, that kind of ties back to one of the things that really sticks in my mind by our guest back in 2021. That was Brian Gorman, who talked about having nerve centers in 3 parts of your body, not just nerves, but literally the nerve centers being in the head and in the heart and in the gut, and how important that is. And that has a lot of relevance here as Lisa is talking about the cellular makeup within our bodies, and also the importance of the food that we take in, that we ingest into our bodies, and the effect that it has. I loved the imagery, the metaphor that she used about a baby's carousel, hanging carousel, where if it gets out of balance, you can't just fix one little thing. You've got to take into account all of the moving parts so that it will move smoothly once again.
Well, and I'm sure that I wish she was here to see if she agreed with me. A lot of these diets that we hear about that help people lose weight quickly, well, they completely throw your molecular chemistry out of balance. So yes, it may help you lose weight at a rapid rate, but are there any long-term effects once you start introducing things back into your body? What's going to happen then? Sometimes I think, take the shortcut instead of looking at what's the longer haul to do things properly. We don't want to do things right. We want to do things right now.
Yeah.
Let's try this once more time. She keeps having trouble logging on. It may just be Minnesota. This reminds me of a story when I was a young man and we were at a friend's house. It was a snowstorm and he was trying to adjust his satellite back in the early 80s because there was some snow on the TV. And my friend's mom said, well, maybe it's because I saw the snow on the satellite. Maybe that's creating it. She was a lovely woman, but not real up on that. Can you hear us, Lisa?
But weather has an effect. There she is.
All of a sudden it went blank. I'm like, well, the gremlins don't want me to share alcohol.
Paul notices that sometimes when my face goes blank. It's all good.
And he's still there. All right, good to have you back, Lisa. We were talking a little bit. Well, we touched on something that one of our coaches talked about, and I'm going to bring this up, not expecting that you well, you probably have perspective on this. And he was talking about there being nerve centers in the body, 3 of them altogether. There's your head, your heart, and your gut, and how important that is. And when the gut isn't right, the rest of the body isn't going to be right either. And I think it's the one that we probably neglect the most. What's your perspective on that?
Definitely. Our gut is called the second brain, but I think it's our first brain because it was formed before our brain and our head.
Yeah.
And we have trillions of bacteria that are good and beneficial that are talking amongst themselves, and 2 viruses, and they're trying to protect us as the host. And we need to listen to that. We need to feed it, and we need to nurture it and listen to it. So many people are dull now, and they're not listening to their gut with symptoms physically. And they don't even trust their intuition. If something doesn't feel right, they're like, well, my gut didn't feel right, but I ignored it. We need to tune into our gut, feed it probiotics, prebiotics. We need to listen to it. And it's overstimulated. It's trying really hard to process all the garbage that's being put in there. So you're not meant to process genetically modified foods. We're not meant to process chemicals, heavy metals that we're getting in mass, colors and artificial flavors, and the hormones that are injected in animals. And we're just not meant to have that. Even the soy, as I mentioned, as a plant hormone.
You know, I keep thinking about, I remember this audio tape that my father shared with me back in the early 90s. And not to offend anyone, but it was called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And it was about this gentleman that was a doctor and a veterinarian, and just kind of making some studies as far as people that lived in remote areas, ate the vegetables that were fed by the river and stuff like this. And the one thing that I always remember is, when we're raising animals for nutrition, to eat, for whatnot, we make sure that we keep their minerals high, because if they break their leg, we shoot them. Well, if we break our leg, we're not going to shoot ourselves, but we don't take as time to make sure that we have the proper nutrients as we do our pets, our animals we're raising for nutrition, or different things like that.
Definitely. And it's getting harder for not just us, but the animals. I've been on the hunt for a non-GMO chicken food for my hens. I can find organic chicken food, but not non-GMO organic chicken food. So they have the genetic DNA tracking done. They just don't spray it, so it's organic. But I don't want to have any of it, and it's really difficult to find.
Oh, we lost her again, Glenn.
I think you're right. I think the gremlins don't want everyone to be healthy, Paul.
I know. I was just going to ask her a question about organic food as opposed to just regular food. Because I know when I go to the supermarket and I look around, the organic stuff is pretty expensive. And I understand there's a reason. But it's worth it if, like I said before, 20, 30 years down the road, you see the effects of eating organic as opposed to not. Hey, Lisa, looks like you're back with us. That's probably a mirage again, Glenn.
We may have to look at really having people in the upper north on during the winter months.
It could be with your story about snow. Could be a matter of snow or cold, or I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that what you were kind of alluding to, with organic versus that, again, I think it's a education piece and knowing a little bit more about where it's coming from, because I guess we have to trust people, and it's getting harder and harder to trust people. When you buy from someone that has the farm that's at a roadside stand, at a farmer's market, stuff like that, who you're buying it from, and you can come back and talk to them, versus the store, you don't know really where it's coming from.
Right. And, there are aspects of business that are involved there, price cuts and, profit margins and whatnot, and taking easier ways out than maybe you and I would if we were just growing things, producing things within a small amount of property that we owned. So I agree.
I will say, from growing up on a farm, a ranch, whatever you want to call it, that I did not like the work part of it, but the food from the garden was amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We do something similar in the warmer months here. On the East Coast, just herbs, small basil and cilantro and even some peppers. We just grow that in the backyard, and it's amazing.
The technical gremlins are chewing the cords. I can visualize that movie right now. They're just chewing them.
There you go. There she is. Okay.
It's all back.
We are all here, as far as I know, Lisa. Your image is frozen, but you're smiling very nicely, and in and out we can hear you.
Can you hear us, Lisa?
I can.
Okay, good. So let me go back to my question from that I just didn't have a chance to spit out before you disappeared. And that is, I know that from doing grocery shopping and whatnot for years, that the organics, we know that they're better for us. They're also a lot more expensive. And we understand, I think we all understand the reason. Is organic absolutely the way to go with all of your foods? Are there some corners you can cut there? What would you say, without a doubt, has to be organic? And what would you say, maybe yes, maybe no?
I would say if you can afford to go totally organic, do so. If not, start with your vegetables.
Yeah. Oh, well, we got that much. For anybody who missed it, she said, start with your vegetables. And at least from my experience, I know definitely start with the vegetables that are thin-skinned. Mm-hmm. Make sure that they're organic. Some of the others that are, and again, I am not a nutritionist. I'm just going by experience, the things that I've done. But anything that has a thick skin to it may not absolutely need to be organic for optimum health. So take that advice for what it's worth. That's just from my experience.
Back.
You are so persistent. We appreciate that about you, Lisa. You won't give up. You just won't give up.
No, I'm a tough Norwegian chick. I'm not going to kill those gremlins yet today. Before it cuts me off again, which I'm sure will probably happen, start with your veggies. Look up the Dirty Dozen. Just Google Dirty Dozen. It'll tell you the 12 worst foods to not eat organic.
Okay.
And once you get the vegetables underway, sometimes it's only like a quarter more. So you can shop around and find different places to get it. Then move on to your meats, because those hormones are affecting us, the ones that are injected with antibiotics and that kind of stuff. And those can affect your children too. When my girls were younger, I have 4 daughters, I immediately switched to non-RBHT milk because girls were developing too soon. And it does do that. It messes with them. So try and cut down all the hormones, all the pesticides that you can, and wash them well. Vinegar washes, peroxide washes. Make sure there's no parasitic eggs under there. Because if you garden, you know they're there. You've seen them. You want to make sure you're not ingesting parasites without knowing it.
Well, and don't you think, as we've mentioned many times, Paul, the biggest hurdle with a lot of this is like other people do within their life, and it's that 6 inches between their ears. You may talk about goat's milk or goat's cheese, these other things, but I promise people, if you try them, they're pretty darn good. I love the creaminess of a goat cheese versus a cow milk cheese.
People are afraid of the new things, or they think the old things are gross. They're not. You just have to try them. Just because they're not normal and average doesn't mean they're not great.
And who wants to be normal or average?
You just see the faces on some of my clients when I say that they eat bok choy. They're like, "What's that? Is that a fish?" And I get it. I'm a Norwegian girl. I grew up on meat and potatoes. We didn't have all those varieties of veggies, so it's new. But then they taste it. They're like, "Oh, where's this been all my life?"
Right.
Well, and don't you think that with some of those things, our palate changes as we age? Because I know I eat a lot of things now that I thought was disgusting when I was, in an adolescent, preteen type of thing.
Yeah. Our taste change. Yeah, definitely. I mean, coffee. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, and then you grow up and you're like, oh, coffee tastes great. Our taste changed. We just have to be open to try it. Like when you try and have your kid eat broccoli for the first time, they're like, there is no way I'm going to eat that at the table. And then a month later, they're like, can I have more broccoli?
Well, I got to tell you, there are so many vegetables that I wasn't that fond of when I was younger. But then I I was introduced to cooking with garlic, and suddenly everything took on a different taste, probably more of an adult taste. But I'll tell you, some of those vegetables when you cook them with garlic, they just taste great. Now, please don't tell me that I'm running into problems by doing that,
Good thing.
because I love garlic.
It's great. It's anti-parasitic. It helps kill some fungus. It's a good thing.
Oh, good.
Definitely. And just to go off on the weeds, I use it in other medicinal ways, but you just can't get enough garlic. It's good for you. The only thing that I caution is if someone has low blood pressure, because I can lower blood pressure with garlic capsules. So you don't want to like eat a massive amount of it if you have low blood pressure, because you can get dizzy and tipsy, and it's a medicine.
I remember hearing years ago that garlic and cayenne work together to help with blood pressure.
Wow. Yep. All right. Well, I do not suffer from low blood pressure, and so I will keep up with the garlic. How about onions, red and or white onions? What are the benefits of those? Adding those into your cooking?
Awesome. Same thing. There's a lot of properties that are healing in that, and even Native Americans, when you peel an onion and you have that really thin see-through film, that's what they would use if they had burns. They would put that over a burn and it would heal. It's an antiseptic cover to a burn.
Wow.
So add the onions. One of my favorite kind of treats that is healthy is I'll saute celery and onions in butter, and I'll mix it with cooked quinoa and put poultry seasoning in there, and it tastes like stuffing. It's so good.
Oh, wow. That's a great idea.
We're going to have to share recipes by Lisa.
It's yummy. It doesn't taste like bland birdseed. So you get the proteins, you get the complex carb, you get a couple root vegetables and a little fat to absorb them. It's a really yummy treat.
Okay. Lisa, we have a couple of questions here. Lisa David Olson says, why is there no broccoli flavored ice cream?
Because no one's going to buy it. Unless there's cheese swirls in it, then they might in Wisconsin. But no one's going to buy it.
But what if you didn't call it broccoli flavored ice cream, Lisa? What if you called it little trees?
We did that at my house. Eat your baby trees, and my kids would do it. Yep.
That's right. It's branding. It's all about the branding.
100%. If someone could market that, they would have a good sale there. Healthy ice cream. I'm a chocolate freak, and ice cream is like my biggest weakness, secondary to pastry baked goods. Take Greek yogurt and put cacao powder in there. That's antioxidant, and it's basically cocoa. And freeze it, and you have chocolate ice cream. And sometimes I like to add monk fruit in there to sweeten it up a little bit, and there's no carbohydrates in monk fruit.
Yeah.
Well, so Lisa said Ben & Jerry's Trees and Fudge. We are recording this so that their attorneys know that if they steal our ideas, that we have already copywritten it.
There you go. Little acorn trees, and yeah, that would be good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys remember Saturday Night Live. Must have been years and years ago, but they had a funny skit on there, and it was cereal that was trees and twigs. And do you remember that skit?
No.
Vaguely. But what era are we talking of SNL?
Well, I'm 51, so I think it was in the 80s, but it was funny, and it was a guy out in nature, and it was literally Twix and stuff. And he's like, remember when the granola cereal was a big deal?
Mm-hmm.
And it was called Colon Blow.
Nice.
Pure fiber, that's granola. So yeah, if they could market it, it would be a good thing.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you.
Yule Gibbons.
Yule Gibbons. Yes, that's right. That's there's a name I remember from way back. What about gluten-free? What are the benefits? What's the upside? What's the downside? I'm sure that you have experienced with people who, when we talk about having a good or bad gut, gluten is a problem. What do you recommend? What are your overall tips for that?
To be honest, gluten-free bread tastes like cardboard. And I know this from experience because my husband has celiac disease.
Ah, okay.
He was basically Oscar the Grouch that ate everything and anything. And to the point I'd ask him what he had for breakfast. He would say, well, SA had hot dogs too for $1. I'm like, oh, Lord. He had to change his whole world because he was diagnosed with celiac. He thought he was having heart issues and heart attacks. We were in the ER 3 times in 2 weeks. It was the pressure from the celiac. What happens is when that gluten leaves the gut, it hits the exit into your intestine and it swells and it causes pressure right at your sternum, and you belch and you want to belch and it's painful. That's like a big symptom. But the grains are so again in that glyphosate. And what that does is it gets stuck. You know, we have these villi that move our food along in our intestinal gut. They're like teeny tiny thousands of fingers. It clogs up in between there like glue. So you can't absorb nutrients between those, and it shaves them off and it's stuck. So one of the products I like to use is called Biome Medic, Biome Medic, and it unsticks that Roundup between there. And when you urinate, you will smell Roundup if you have a lot of it stuck in there, just to forewarn people. But it stops absorption of your nutrients and it's toxic. It's glyphosate. All the grains are soaked in it. So that's why we're a little more hypersensitive to all these grains. It's not like grains changed from thousands of years ago, other than they're spraying them with all these poisonous chemicals.
Wow.
If you eat a lot of almond flour on a celiac diet, you can get, again, some toxicity from eating a lot of a certain kind of thing. Rice flour is a little heavy in arsenic, like I had mentioned. So you don't want to live on rice flour. You want to mix up all your flours, potato starch. I have quinoa flour, banana flour, which makes really good banana bread, dangerous. So there's different flours. You want to mix them up if you are on a celiac diet. But you'll cut down a lot of inflammation because you remove the glyphosate contamination. So if you can do it, do it.
Awesome. Well, I know it doesn't seem like it because we've had a lot of fun going back and forth here, but we're up to 55 minutes, Paul.
We're almost at that place because we do respect everyone's time and we don't want to go over. Lisa, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that? Because I'm sure that they have questions. We all do. I did. Glenn did. We still do. And so will everyone else. What's the best way to reach you?
If you go to my website, which is hairanalysisnutrition.com, there's all kinds of links on there. You can schedule a time that works for you for a free consultation. I usually take about 45 minutes because I want to get to know somebody and what they're going through and try and give them some ideas of what we can look at and what we can do and how I can help them. So at the least, they leave the phone call with some ideas of what's going on and what to change. LinkedIn, I live on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, great people. I met you there. I'm so glad to meet Glenn today through all these gremlins. I'm on there as Lisa Rufsholm, and I'm on there as Hair Analysis Nutrition. So you can find me there. I'm not on Facebook so much, but I do have a group there. They can reach out to you and get a hold of me. So I'm like the detox detective. If they really want to know what's going on at that very low level, where's this all starting from, I can help you out and try and trace that down. I found things in the craziest places you can believe. I had a lady with zinc toxicity. It was from watering the medicinal marijuana her doctor gave her with galvanized steel cans.
Whoa. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that you would have to be, you'd have to really know what you were looking for. So yes, you are the nutritional detective. And I have to say from experience that your posts on LinkedIn are numerous and they're very informative. So everyone definitely go on there and check out what you will learn about Lisa, hair analysis, and also learn about yourself.
I think we lost Paul. There you are.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us and fighting and battling through the technical difficulty. This was great. I'm sure people were able to get a lot of information from this. Everyone, we'll see you back here again next week. Take care, everyone.
Thank you much. Bye-bye.